Once upon a time Actually no, let's do this one a little different. So instead of making this one of those super condensed 100 takes videos, I want to keep it raw out of two reasons. Now for one, I had struggles keeping up with my upload schedule, and number two, I think a lot of people feel this way, and I wanted to get this out of my chest and maybe help one or two of you. I also don't want this to be a video where I preach how failure makes you grow, which is true, but this video is more for the people that kind of reached a certain amount of failure where they're at a breaking point. And that breaking point might be different for each and every one of us, so let's just get into it. Oftentimes we already know how to deal with setbacks, that certain things just take time and eventually the situation that we think to be bad is going to get better. But in the moment of failure, we kind of forget about all of that. It's like a blur and all this negativity is eating you up, and all of a sudden there's no hope. At least it's like that for me. And to explain where all this is coming from, I went from having a solid path, being an athlete, wanting to study engineering, to dropping out of school, and my life basically taking a 180. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to do something on my own. It started with me wanting to have my own business to now me trying to be an artist, or being an artist trying to accomplish something with that. So my struggle currently lays in the career aspect of life, and yours might be completely different from mine, but what connects both of us, you and me, is that we both want to reach the other side of this wall. And sometimes this can get really frustrating because this wall seems to be reaching for the stars, hence we don't know if we'll ever reach the other side in the first place. So, why continue? This is actually so much more difficult to talk about than I thought. So when you're at a stage where you want to drop everything, whether it's a relationship, a job, a business, a body transformation, literally anything, the first thing to do is take a step back from that hopeless pit that your brain likes to create, because once you're in that zone, nothing really works out. And from there, I would say two questions can really help. Number one being, is my current situation causing me more suffering than it should? And number two, if it does, is the struggle worth it? I think one of the biggest misconceptions a lot of us have is that if we give up on something, it's considered the ultimate failure of life. And I think it highly depends on your situation. I make a YouTube video that takes massive amounts of work, like my last one, and it performs terribly. And that kind of makes you question, why am I even doing this? And so my point being is that if the outcome decides your happiness, either change your outlook on things or give up on that certain thing and seek general change. If I wouldn't love the process of creating YouTube videos, I'd probably give up in the first 10 weeks. I think the biggest problem that makes us feel like we're a failure is the stupid system of the ladder. We need to have a family by this age, we need to have a career by this age, we need this, we need that, and there's always something more to climb for. And I just realized not too long ago how caught up everybody, including myself, is in all this. I'm not saying you shouldn't grow as a person, get better at your craft and develop as a human being, but to give an example, instead of chasing that one goal or make everything revolve around that one goal in your life, take a look at your next step and continue to go forward without a peak in mind. Instead of picturing a ladder with an end, try to see it infinite, because we inside truly are infinite. A quick slip-in to further elaborate on this concept, having no end to the ladder basically means that the race falls off, since nobody will ever be able to reach the top. Which on the other hand means for you that you can finally work on your own steps of your own ladder without having the pressure of feeling like you have to be somewhere at a certain period of time. I think this is getting a bit too philosophical. Basically, try to live your life knowing that this ladder is infinitely long and you cannot reach the top, ever. And the actual end, the actual top of that ladder is one's death. To conclude this headache, if your situation is terrible, and I don't mean you have to wake up early for your job and you feel tired, but maybe you have a job that pays well, but you're suffering tremendously under it, or you just don't like the people that you're working with, or relationship-wise, maybe your partner is just really toxic, or maybe you're addicted to something. Of course it's hard to let go, but you need change. And instead of looking at as utter failure, your current situation as utter failure, just see it as one step in your own personal ladder. Live with it, go through with it, and continue living your life without being like, I'm only worth as soon as I'm successful, as soon as I reach that point, and basically everything in between, I was not alive. And another slip-in, what I really dislike about the society is how we put price tags on each and every one of us. How can you say Billy the garbage man, the construction worker, or the plumber is worth any less than Edward the engineer or the lawyer, just because Billy didn't do too well in school, despite the fact maybe being highly educated in another field. Or maybe our boy Billy just doesn't fit into the system. Not everybody has the same opportunities. If you look at the children in a war zone, for example, are they worth any less than somebody that accumulated a massive amount of success in their life? Of course not. And what I want to say with that is that you are not a failure. No matter how rock bottom you are, you will never be one. You probably made a few mistakes. I mean, we all did. That shit is life. But wherever you are, you can always change. And it's all just another step in your own personal ladder. Like, how many times have you felt like your life was a blur? Like, you've reached certain destinations in your life, and you're only truly alive when you're consciously thinking about your current situation, and you don't really even know how you got to that point. And so instead of making life one destination after the other and only really being alive during those certain destinations, I try to look at the journey, because that's what your life is. Number 2 correlates to number 1. Basically, if whatever you're doing bears fruit and the struggles are indeed worth it, don't give up on it, no matter how long it takes. For example, if you want to be a director, it took Quentin Tarantino 5 years to sell a certain, I think he sold a couple of scripts, and with that money he basically made his first successful movie, which is Dogs, I think, Reservoir Dogs. And this is where it ties to the first point. Basically, in all this time we cannot forget it's not the success that made him a director, but he was a director all along. He lived as one, he wrote scripts, and he enjoyed what he was doing, and eventually his hard work paid off and he was able to reach more people with it. Another thing I feel like a lot of people overlook is that just because your hard work is not acknowledged, or people don't see you overcoming a certain hard situation or overcoming a hurdle as something great, doesn't mean it's any less beautiful. My friend actually gave me a really good example. On a planet somewhere in this universe is an extraordinarily beautiful flower. And despite the fact that nobody knows about this flower's existence, doesn't mean it's any less beautiful. If you take a look at Van Gogh, for example, who is now celebrated by millions of people, and all of his art is now portrayed in museums, all this only happened after his death. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this guy lived a terrible life and he sold nothing. Regardless, he continued painting because that is what truly invigorated him. We might as well take Stanley Kubrick, for instance, who also was only considered a genius after his death. I recently read a book, or like letters to be precise, by Rainer Maria I hate mixing English with German, it always sounds so weird. And in my all-time favorite quotes, he said, "In this there's no measuring with time. A year doesn't matter and 10 years are nothing. Being an artist means not numbering and counting, but ripening like a tree which doesn't force its sap and stands confidently in the storms of spring, not afraid that afterwards summer may not come. Live your life to the fullest, because tomorrow it might be over. And truly ask yourself if that frustration you're experiencing right now is truly worth it." And with that, I want to apologize that there was no video this week. I will try to make up for it next week, hopefully. I just really needed to get this out of my chest, because even though you know all these insights and you know about all this glamoury philosophical stuff, it still sometimes can get really hard to continue. Like, it's hard for me to continue to talk because Also, besides, I just wanted to focus more on my art this week. So yeah, sometimes I just have all these thoughts in my head and they exist, but they have no solid ground, and so they just keep floating. And with this video, I kind of gave myself more structure on how I view things in life. So with that being said, regardless of this being a rather different video, I still hope you enjoyed it, and truly thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.